Chapter 13. This chapter provides you with information about the availability of teaching positions in elementary, middle, and secondary schools, both within the United States and overseas. In addition, teaching opportunities in private schools as well as public schools are addressed. It also explores other career opportunities both within and outside the educational field. Study the information carefully and discuss it with your instructors in your career planning and placement office. Your program of study may offer more job options than you have realized. This fictitious ad contains many messages about the roles that teachers play. It also highlights the fact that there is a serious need for skilled new teachers in U.S. schools. As you have thought about teaching as a career, you have probably wondered whether you will be able to obtain a teaching position when you graduate. Although we would like to answer this question for you personally, we obviously cannot. For example, certain subject matter fields have shortages of qualified teachers, while other fields have surpluses. Providing you with this kind of information may help you increase your chance of obtaining the kind of teaching position you are seeking. Wanted: men in wisdom with the wisdom of Solomon, the patience of Job, and the nerves of David before Goliath need to prepare the next generation for productive citizenship in the 21st century. Often under adverse conditions, applicants must be willing to fill in gaps left by unfit, absent, or working parents, satisfy demands of local bureaucrats and state politicians, impart healthy self-esteem, and by the way, teach content. Hours: 50 to 60 hours per week. Pay: growing, respectable. Reward: the luxury of always knowing that you are doing something significant worth your life. Teaching is a large occupation, with 3.7 million elementary and secondary teachers, representing 4% of the entire civilian workforce in the United States. There are more K-12 teachers than registered nurses, 3 times as many teachers as lawyers, and twice as many teachers as engineers in this country. Given the vast size of the teaching workforce, many jobs exist. The demand for teachers appears to show a slow but steady increase over the next decade. The employment market continues to be challenging in many areas of the country, and teaching candidates must work hard to secure these teaching openings. Figure 13.1 shows past, current, and projected numbers of classroom teachers in the United States. Many variables influence the supply and demand for teachers in the United States. The following section discusses a number of these factors. Obviously, when more students are enrolled in schools, more teachers are needed. The good news is that enrollment in public and private schools reached 55.3 million students in 2013 and is projected to increase to 58.4 million in 2021, an increase of over 3 million students. In the United States, enrollments in secondary schools will increase by about 4% through 2021, while enrollments in elementary schools will increase by over 6%. The number of classroom teachers is expected to increase by over 400,000 from 2013 to 2021, from 3.7 million in 2013 to 4.1 million by 2020. During the 1980s and 90s, the demand for new teachers was boosted by declining class sizes, especially in California, where the legislature tried to reduce class sizes in K-3 classrooms to around 20 students. Nationally, current class sizes now hover around 20 students in public elementary schools and have reached over 23 students per teacher in public secondary schools. Class sizes in private schools are slightly smaller than those in public schools, averaging a bit more than 20 students per class for both elementary and secondary schools. However, the challenges in class sizes during the next few years are expected to be small, and they are not likely to affect the demand for new teachers in any significant fashion. Across the United States, approximately 160,000 teachers are prepared each year. However, only 60% of those prepared to teach actually enter the classroom, and of these individuals, 30 to 40% leave teaching within the first 5 years. Thus, an adequate number of teachers are prepared to meet the demand, but because so many choose not to teach or stop teaching after a few years, the supply often doesn't match the demand for new teachers. Location significantly influences the teaching job market. Some communities have far more applicants than available teaching positions. University towns, for example, usually have a great surplus of qualified teachers, although large urban areas historically have had more teachers available than they needed. Before the economic recession between 2007 and 2009, they experienced a significant shortage. Rural America traditionally has encountered difficulty attracting and holding on to teachers because of lower salaries and a more sedate lifestyle than what many young teachers seek. Not enough qualified teachers are willing to teach in urban and rural schools, particularly those serving low-income students or students of color. These schools are experiencing high turnover rates among teachers. Student enrollments in different geographical regions of the country are following different patterns as well, which influences teaching opportunities. Enrollment and consequently teaching opportunities are increasing in the western and southern part of the United States and declining in the northeastern states. Teachers tend to be more place-bound than many other professionals. That is because of family commitments or the importance of geographical location. Many teachers seeking jobs are reluctant to stray far from home. Even though teaching jobs may be available in other parts of the country, teachers from the Northeast, for example, may not want to relocate to California. Teachers are not interchangeable units. They are prepared for different specialities, and the job market in each of these subfields is different. Moreover, the job market for specific subfields may change often. It is unwise, therefore, to decide whether to become an English teacher because you have heard that today there is generally either a surplus or a shortage of such teachers. There have been and continue to be chronic national teacher shortages in certain subjects, including computer science, hearing and visually impaired, Chinese, Japanese, and reading diagnostician. There is some surplus of teachers in pre through K and elementary education, English language arts, and social studies. In addition to looking for teachers in the subjects just listed, schools are seeking greater number of minorities and males. Because 76% of all teachers are female, schools want to increase the number of males in the teaching force, especially at the elementary school level, where only 11% of the nation's 1.63 million elementary public school teachers are men. The United States is experiencing record teacher retirements as the teaching force continues to age. A recent report estimated that from 2010 to 2018, 1.5 million more teachers will retire. One factor that bodes well for the long-term job outlook is that teachers, like much of the rest of the American workforce, are getting older. More than 30% of teachers are at least 50 years old. Another factor influencing job availability relates to the percentage of eligible teachers who elect not to teach or those who leave teaching after a few years. As mentioned earlier, 40% of those prepared to teach elect not to enter teaching, and the 60% who do teach, 30 to 40% leave teaching within the first 5 years. Sadly, the brightest novice teachers, are measured by their college entrance exams, are the most likely to leave. Teachers who leave because of dissatisfaction cite student discipline problems, poor working conditions, lack of support from the school administration, poor student motivation, and lack of teacher influence over school-wide and classroom decision-making as major reasons. What is difficult to estimate is the number of licensed teachers currently not teaching who might re-enter the teaching force if jobs are readily available. When teacher shortages have been predicted in the past, these returning teachers have filled the anticipated shortages. Whether this pattern will continue remains to be seen. Teachers licensed through alternative routes are estimated to account for approximately 1/3 of the new teachers hired in this country. In spite of the positive long-term outlook for the teaching job market in times of economic hardship, school districts may find it necessary to reduce the size of their teaching forces to balance budgets. During the severe 2007-2009 recession, many school districts in most states found it necessary to reduce their teaching forces for lack of money. As state and local government revenues dropped dramatically, school districts' budgets were also reduced. Many school districts were forced to issue reduction in force notices to teachers, informing them that they were in danger of not being rehired for the following fall. The American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, passed by Congress in 2009, provided $785 billion, much of which went to the states to try to offset the effects of the recession. As a result of this act and the Job Creation Act of 2010, which provided $10 billion more, many teachers' jobs were preserved. These measures, however, were stopgap with no guarantee of continuation in the future. What we have learned from this painful recession is that the demand for teachers is greatly influenced by school districts' budgets, which in turn are affected by the health of the state and local economies. What, then, are the job prospects for future teachers? In the long run, the situation is promising because the number of classroom teachers in elementary and secondary schools is projected to increase until at least 2021, primarily because of teacher retirements, teachers leaving the field, and increases in student enrollment. In the short run, many states and school districts continue to suffer financially, which affects their ability to hire new teachers. In the past, if the supply of qualified teachers did not keep up with the demand, states and local school districts resorted to such practices as increasing class sizes, hiring less than qualified personnel, and assigning teachers trained in one field to teach in an understaffed field. These options may be less readily available now because of the federal No Child Left Behind law requires all states to ensure that every public school teacher is highly qualified, which means that the teacher has been licensed by the state and has demonstrated a high level of competence in the subjects that he or she teaches. The requirements of the No Child Left Behind law for highly qualified teachers suggests that once the country has recovered economically, the demand for teachers will increase in years to come. Keep in mind, too, that demographic projections and supply and demand forecasts are not just hard to apply, but are also very inexact and short-lived. Although their task is difficult, forecasters try to take into account the various factors we have discussed, such as retirement rates, number of former teachers re-entering the field, and programs fluctuating effects of these forces. What seems to be true now for a particular geographic area, a particular teaching field, or a particular year may soon be out of date. For all these reasons, you should make every effort to get the most up-to-the-minute information possible about teacher supply and demand. Consider such information carefully before you make a choice about pursuing a career in education, and in particular about entering a specific subfield within education. This is especially true for people who are unable to wait for openings in their areas of teaching interest, who are unable to relocate. Sources of data with which to begin your search include your school's career counseling office, the department chairperson's or dean's office, and your state department of education. Also, see the listing of useful references at the end of this chapter. The bottom line is that demand for teachers will increase in the coming years. Remember, too, that there has never been a surplus of good teachers in any field. One of the greatest teacher supply and demand problem concerns minority teachers. At a time when the minority school-age population is increasing rapidly, the number of minority teachers is decreasing. This shortage is severe now and appears likely to become worse in the future. As discussed in Chapter 3, enrollments of students from minority groups are increasing. These children are currently estimated to account for about 44% of all students in public schools. Teaching staffs, by contrast, are becoming more and more white. Of public school teachers, 83% are white, 6% are African American, 8% are Hispanic, and only 3% come from other minority groups, including Asian American or Pacific Islander and Native American or Native Alaskan. Most minority teachers are located in central cities rather than in suburban or rural areas. During most of the 1990s, the graduation rates for minority students from teacher education programs were lower than their percentage distribution in the teaching force. Although minority enrollment in teacher education has been increasing in recent years, the need for such teachers is still acute. This shortage of minority teachers is problematic for several reasons. First, minority children deserve to have positive minority role models who can help guide them in a world still plagued by racism. Second, white children need to have minority teachers as positive role models to help them overcome the effects of stereotyping and racism. Third, it is important for the United States' well-being to have a teaching staff that reflects the diversity of racial and ethnic backgrounds in its population. Fourth, minority teachers are needed to serve as cultural brokers who can help all students navigate their school environment and culture. A number of reasons explain the shortage of minority teachers. Before desegregation efforts, nearly one-half of African American professional workers were teachers. When schools desegregated in the 60s and 70s, resulting in the consolidation of formerly all-black and all-white schools, thousands of African American teachers were dismissed. Today, other professions that pay more and have higher status are actively recruiting minority college students. Another casual factor has been the increasing use of competency tests at either the beginning or the end of teacher education programs. Many minority teaching candidates are either having difficulties with these tests or are being discouraged from even considering teaching as a career. It is early in the fall term at Garfield High School in East Los Angeles. Once a crime-ridden school filled with low-achieving Mexican-American students, and it is the morning after the second game of the World Series, and as he enters the class, the teacher known as El Professor shouts out his first question: "Who won the game?" After a pause, the students begin to chant enthusiastically, "Dodgers, Dodgers." Having captured their attention, Jamie Escalante moves to the math lesson. Slapping a baseball into his mitt, he says, "As x approaches a, f of x is the trajectory. Could be a curveball." And they are off, teacher and 59 students, on a journey into the mysteries of calculus. Jamie Escalante, the son of an elementary school teacher, was born in La Paz, Bolivia, and began his own teaching career before age 20. Although he was a high school math and physics teacher, his students began to accumulate prizes, and he soon gained national recognition. Still in his 20s, he organized the first Bolivian National Symposium of Physics and Math Teachers. In 1963, amid growing social strife in Bolivia, Escalante, now married with 2 sons, decided to take his wife and young family to the United States. The next 10 years were years of adjustment and struggle, during which Escalante learned English, went back to college, and worked as a busboy and a cook. When he finally graduated, he took a job in the fast-growing computer industry and studied for the California teaching license in his free time. Soon the news came that he had passed the test and would be assigned to a run-down, troubled high school in the barrio, and Escalante turned his back on his substantially larger paycheck from the high-tech world and headed to Garfield High School. When the student's accreditation was threatened because of its students' low academic performance and high dropout rate, Escalante made his move. Supported by reform-minded administrators who began setting high standards and making serious demands on students, they were not allowed into his class unless they proved that they had done their homework. He skillfully used the time-honored carrot-and-stick approach to cajole his pupils into reaching greater heights. In this case, the carrot was college, and the world of opportunities higher education opened up for his students. The stick was his constant challenging of them. You Burrows have math in your blood. Our Mayan ancestors were the first to develop the concept of zero. In 1982, his largest class of students took and passed an advanced placement test in calculus. Some of the students' test scores were invalidated by the testing company because it believed that the students had cheated, since no one expected Hispanic students from an economically disadvantaged school to do so well. Despite Escalante's protest, the students had to retake the exam several months later. Once again, they did well, exceeding expectations and proving that they knew the material and that the company was wrong. Jamie Escalante, the subject of the Academy Award-nominated film Stand and Deliver, later taught at Hiram Johnson High School in Sacramento, California. He hosted the PBS series Futures with Jamie Escalante, produced by the Foundation for Advancements in Science and Education. In addition, he received numerous awards, including the prestigious U.S. Presidential Medal for Excellence in Education and an introduction into the National Teachers Hall of Fame. Escalante was more than the man who has helped hundreds of Mexican-American children discover self-discipline and learning and the enormous self-pride that comes with those accomplishments. He was a tide turner. He set an idea in motion, the idea that poor immigrant children are capable of great intellectual feats. He showed how remedial, slowed-down education can be replaced by demanding accelerated education. My skills are really to motivate these kids to make them learn and give them ganas, the desire to do something to make them believe they can learn. Escalante has always been clear about why he thought his love for young people and his love of his subject. Until his death in March 2010, Escalante remained a clear and forceful spokesman for quality education, especially for minority children. He took a strong position against extensive bilingual education, believing it handicaps rather than helps Latino students. Instead, he urged a demanding education that will give minority students the knowledge and skills they need to compete in a demanding world. His educational views are captured in his famous motto, "Determination plus discipline plus hard work equals the way to success." What can be done to address this problem? Teaching salaries must continue to improve if teaching is to compete with other professions for well-qualified candidates. Assistant programs to help minority candidates perform well on competency tests have been effective in a number of universities and should be expanded to more colleges. Active recruitment programs for minority candidates must be developed and implemented, and they must reach down into the middle and high schools to encourage minority students to consider teaching as a career long before they enter college. As will be described later in the chapter, alternative license programs have been successful in recruiting minority teachers and should be continued. Scholarship and loan forgiveness programs are needed for students who want to teach but cannot afford to pay for college. Finally, the American public must communicate in a variety of ways that it values teachers and the work they do. See the Leaders in Education feature for a biological sketch of one of America's most outstanding minority teachers, Jamie Escalante. Although much of the data presented in this chapter refer to public elementary and secondary schools, teachers can work in a variety of other school settings. Federal government schools and private schools are two major alternatives to teaching in a local public school. A larger employer of teachers is the U.S. government. The Department of Defense operates 194 elementary and secondary schools in 7 states, Puerto Rico, Guam, and 12 countries around the world. These schools enroll approximately 86,000 students and employ about 8,700 teachers. Salaries are comparable to those in the United States, but preference is given to applicants who have at least 1 year of successful full-time employment as a professional educator. Private education is a highly significant part of the American education system. The more than 30,800 private schools in the U.S. have an enrollment of just under 4.5 million elementary and secondary school students and employ approximately 421,000 teachers. About 8% of all U.S. children in elementary or secondary schools attend a private school, with the overwhelming majority attending religion-affiliated schools. Private schools employ approximately 12% of all elementary and secondary teachers in the United States and more than 700,000 new teachers are expected to be needed in private schools from 2013 to 2021. Thus, private schools offer a growing employment opportunity for new teachers. Helpful references for finding teaching jobs in non-public schools are provided at the end of this chapter. If you are considering a position at a private school, you should reflect on the perspective. Many teachers who work in religion-affiliated schools do so because of religious motives. These teachers are often willing to work for less money than their public school counterparts. As a result, the average teacher's salary in private schools is about 25% lower than that in public schools. In many cases, lower salaries tend to be offset by favorable working conditions. Compared with public schools, private schools have fewer classroom control problems, stricter discipline, smaller classes, fewer students using drugs, students who are absent less often, parents who are more supportive, a higher percentage of colleagues who share the school's mission, and a more supportive administration. Although private school teachers tend to work about 2 more hours a week than their public school counterparts, they believe they have a greater influence over important school policy. Thus, for many individuals, teaching in a private school represents an attractive alternative to teaching in the public schools. The Voices from the Classroom feature presents one teacher comparison of the experience of working in public and private schools. We might answer the question by saying, not nearly enough. No one ever went into teaching because of the lure of big money. As we wrote in Chapter 1, Why Teach? The majority rewards for teaching are personal rather than monetary. Most of teachers' satisfactions comes from being of service to others and helping students learn. That does not mean, however, that you have to be a pauper to enjoy the satisfactions that come from teaching. Salaries are a legitimate concern for prospective teachers. After all, everyone must have sufficient income to meet the cost of living. You will have to decide whether the salary you are likely to make as a classroom teacher will allow you to establish the lifestyle you want. This section presents some objective facts to help you make your decision. The 2013-2014 average salary of classroom teachers in the U.S. was estimated to be about $56,689. Figure 13.3 shows the rise in average salaries since 2004, and Table 13.1 shows how salaries vary by state and region. The average salary column in the table represents the average for all public elementary and secondary school teachers, and the beginning salary column indicates the average for first-year teachers. For teachers in their first year, the average pay across the United States as a whole was $36,141 in 2012-2013, ranging from a low of $27,274 to a high of $51,539. Most public school salaries are usually determined by 2 factors: years of teaching experience and amount of education, usually expressed in terms of college credit hours or advanced degrees. Thus, the longer you teach and the more college education you receive, the more money you will make. In addition, some states and school districts have used various forms of merit or performance pay plans to reward teachers for exceptional teaching, acquiring new skills needed by the school, achieving national board certification, raising student test scores, or assuming more professional responsibilities. Many politicians support performance pay plans as a way to reward those teachers who are deemed most effective. Such plans, they say, ensure that effective teachers' efforts are recognized and should lead to fewer good teachers leaving the profession. Most teacher unions have opposed performance pay plans, maintaining that fair and equitable means for determining the salary increases under these schemes are elusive. As Table 13.1 shows, salaries vary considerably from state to state. Each school district determines what it will pay its teachers, with many states setting a minimum base salary below which the school district cannot go. Generally, the large and middle-sized school districts pay better than the small ones, and urban and suburban school districts pay better than rural ones. Many school districts offer extra pay for special duties such as directing the band or coaching athletic teams. Some offer summer teaching or curriculum development jobs. Most states and school districts provide public school teachers with a number of fringe benefits, including sick leave, health and life insurance programs, and retirement benefits. When applying for a teaching position, be sure to ask about these benefits. They are a major advantage for public school teachers over employees in the private sector, especially as many private employers are cutting back on such benefits. I loved the pulse of my urban high school with its creative and energetic faculty. With 3 other chemistry teachers in our school of just under 2,000 students, we never lacked ideas or opinions about how to best help our students succeed. Sometimes we struggled to match our equipment availability to our classroom plans, but we always benefited from the sharing of experiences and expertise. In addition to a large and diverse faculty, my urban high school boasted a large and diverse student population. However, with just 3 to 4 hours of planning time per week and 130 to 150 students in 5 sections, as well as science fair projects, science teams, and other extracurricular responsibilities, little time remained in my schedule to offer extra help to my students. After 6 years of public high school teaching, I accepted a science teaching position at an independent college preparatory girls' school. Because my teaching assignment at the private school included 60 to 65 students in 4 sections, the amount of time during the school day to plan lessons and work with students doubled from what I was used to in the public setting. In addition, because of the weekly school schedule included time for faculty meetings and student clubs during the school day, teachers and students shared free time before and after school for help sessions, makeup work, and additional student enrichment. Other conditions were different too. More parents returned teacher telephone calls, provided necessary home support for learning, made arrangements for students to attend help sessions, attended school functions, and generally worked together with school personnel to ensure that their children received a quality education. If I had the chance to create an ideal high school environment, I would blend elements of both public and private schools. Ideal high would boast a diverse, creative, and energetic faculty and student population with small classes and sufficient time for teachers to plan and deliver quality lessons. Each student would have the opportunity to reach his or her full potential. Parents, administrators, teachers, and students at Ideal High would share a common vision of an educational community of disciplined effort and academic achievement. The job market may be encouraging for beginning teachers, but regardless of how great the demand for teachers is or how effective you may be as a teacher, school district personnel are not likely to walk up to you and offer you a job unless you have taken the steps outlined in this section. Here we suggest several courses of action that will greatly increase your chances of finding the best teaching job for you. First, you must be determined to campaign actively for a teaching position. Draw up a plan in writing stating how you will proceed. Don't wait for happenstance. You might get lucky and land a job on your first try, but why take a passive attitude when you can do much more to increase your chances of obtaining satisfying employment? For example, try attending job fairs sponsored by various colleges, universities, and school districts. Job seekers often make 2 common mistakes. First, they try one strategy, wait for results, and then try something else. What you should do instead is to pursue many avenues or strategies simultaneously. Second, job seekers block themselves out at the wrong stage in the process. Some teachers half-heartedly write for information or never complete the application form. Others withdraw their applications prematurely. Remember, you can always say no to a job offered to you, but you can never say yes to the one that has not been offered. Keep your options open. Next, you need to get certain materials ready, namely your resume, cover letter, credentials, and transcripts. Your resume allows you to present yourself the way you want to be presented to prospective employers. Its purpose is to help you get an interview with school district officials. You should make several copies of your resume and bring extras with you to any interview. Many sources are available to help you write your resume. The Office of Career Planning and Placement at your college or university is a good place to start. These offices often run workshops on resume and cover letter writing and frequently have samples of well-written resumes and cover letters available for you to examine. The American Association for Employment and Education's annual job search handbook for educators, which is listed in the for further information section at the end of the chapter, is also an excellent source on how to write resumes and on other job search strategies. Another set of materials that an increasing number of teachers are using to help them obtain jobs is called a teaching portfolio. Just as artists, actors, architects, and journalists use portfolios to display their products of their work, so can teachers. A teaching portfolio can include an organized collection of such items as research papers, letters of commendation or recommendation, videos of student performances, essays, pupil evaluations, teaching units, and digital recordings of lessons you have taught. There is no set format. You are limited only by your common sense and your own imagination. Remember, the purpose of the portfolio is to market yourself effectively, so don't be modest. A properly constructed portfolio will say more about you than your resume ever can. Many beginning teachers are constructing electronic portfolios and making them available to potential employers either as websites or on DVDs. The advantage of an electronic portfolio is that it is easily accessible by potential employers and can be changed or enhanced as needed. Electronic teaching portfolios are often being used to demonstrate that prospective teachers have achieved standards, such as the NTASC standards required for license. In some states, the National Board of Professional Teaching Standards has advocated teaching portfolios as a means of assessing a teacher's work for national certification. Almost all school districts require credentials or the whole package from your college. recommending you for license. Check with the Career Planning and Placement Office about how to establish your credential file and what should go into it. Typically, this file includes letters of recommendation, a copy of your transcript, and a resume. Career Planning and Placement Office personnel will help you assemble this file, and they will send copies of your file to school districts on your request. You should start working on this file early in your program so that you will have plenty of time to accumulate the required materials. Letters of recommendation should be recent, and they should come from those who are familiar with your teaching, academic knowledge, and character. Be certain to include letters from your university supervisor and your cooperating teacher in whose classroom you did your student or internship teaching. Be familiar with the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, also known as the Buckley Amendment, which affords you certain kinds of legal protection regarding what goes into your file. Many applications require that job seekers submit transcripts as well. Because colleges charge several dollars per transcript, you can save money by reproducing the transcript yourself. Most school districts will accept such unofficial transcripts for the initial screening process. If you receive a job offer, you will then have to provide the school district with an official copy. When you send your resume, transcripts, and other materials to prospective school districts, the package should include a cover letter. The cover letter you write should be addressed individually. The letters may all have the same or similar content, but the recipients should not feel they are receiving a standard letter. And be sure to ask for an interview at the end of the letter. That's why you are writing it. Review your personal Facebook account to be certain that it doesn't negatively affect your consideration for teaching positions. Check your privacy settings and delete any pictures, videos, or web links that could be perceived as inappropriate by potential employers, such as images or links showing you using alcohol or tobacco or being inappropriately dressed. Most interviews follow a simple question and answer routine. Your ability to communicate effectively with a stranger is in this undoubtedly stressful situation is critical to being offered the job. Being prepared is the best way to avoid a disorganized answer. Sometimes the interviewer may play devil's advocate, disagreeing with the position you articulate to see whether you will back down from it in deference to an authority figure. You should be aware of this possibility. Be prepared to assess your position straightforwardly and then stand behind it, avoiding waffling. Your success in interviewing depends on how convincingly you can convey your ability to teach. Interviews are often subjective, so your enthusiasm, self-confidence, eagerness, and believability will affect the outcome of your interview. Be sincere and mean what you say. Look at the interviewer in the eye. First impressions are important, so dress conservatively. Remove visible body piercings and cover up tattoos. At the conclusion of the interview, restate any important points you want to emphasize. Ask the interviewer for a business card and ask when the selection decision will be made. Send the interviewer a thank you note. Courtesy can make a difference. Questions may be asked. Include the following. Tell us about yourself. Why do you want to teach? Why do you want to work in our school district? Which grade levels or subjects are you most interested in teaching? What do you consider to be your strongest attributes as a teacher? Weaknesses? What was your biggest problem in student teaching? How did you resolve it? How would you work with students who perform below grade level, especially those from poverty backgrounds? What is your philosophy of education? What are the most important learning outcomes you want your students to achieve? What skills and experience do you have in employing cooperative learning strategies or computers for instructional purpose? How can you motivate unmotivated learners? How would you involve parents to help students learn? Describe how you have differentiated a lesson to accommodate specific students' needs. What is your grading philosophy? How have you incorporated curriculum standards into your lesson plans and units? What ideas do you have about maintaining classroom control? Which rules for students would you establish in your classroom? How would you enforce these rules? Describe the most difficult standard student discipline situation you have faced and explain how you handled it. How do you plan to keep growing as a professional? Which professional journals do you need? Which added school responsibilities are you willing to accept? What would you do if you caught a student cheating? If money were unlimited, how would you improve education? How would you handle a student who refused to do the work you assigned? During a job interview, you will answer many questions, but to gain the information that will help you choose among the jobs offered to you, you will also need to ask questions. Remember, you are interviewing the prospective employer too. Before you accept a position, you will need to know about the following: characteristics of the school district to student population, curriculum and resources available, typical class size, salary and benefits, district's expectations and reimbursement policies for professional development, orientation or support services available for beginning teachers. These are just a few suggestions for additional information on interview questions. The success of your personal interview with the school district representative is one of the most important determinants of whether you get hired, so be prepared. Try to anticipate the kinds of questions you might be asked. Try role-playing with a friend who assumes the role of the interviewer while you play the candidate. Audiotape your interview so the two of you can criticize it. One survey indicated that the major factor school officials consider as part of the decision-making process is whether the candidate has empathy for children. Be prepared to show your empathy, not by saying you have it, but rather through your examples. You give information from your own experience. You should also ask those who write letters of recommendation for you to emphasize this aspect of your character. Remember, you are also interviewing a school district or specific school. You should look for a good fit between you and your style of teaching and what the school or district expects from you. Don't be so eager to get any position that you ignore the issues of fit. As character schools continue to emerge, new teachers will have more options to choose from in terms of work climate, educational philosophy, and learning goals. In addition, consider whether you will have success to an induction program and a mentor teacher. Research shows that having a good mentor teacher increases the likelihood of your success as a teacher. Secondary school teachers should also ask whether the number of class preparations is reduced for beginning teachers. Having only one or two types of classes to prepare for makes the first year of teaching much easier than having to complete 3 or 4 preparations for different courses. Your next major task is to find out which jobs are available and where. You can use many different strategies to obtain this information. Your college's career planning and placement office receives hundreds of notifications of position vacancies, so contact that office often to see whether there are any vacancies that might interest you. Be on the lookout for job fairs where school districts and potential teachers come together at one site to explore job opportunities. Your college or university may also sponsor such a job fair. Another source of information may be the Teacher Employment Office operated by the State Department of Education. Approximately 1/3 of the states run such offices. You can register with them for free or for a small charge. These offices send registered candidates listings of openings in their specialty area for both state and out-of-state vacancies. In addition, some private school and professional organizations keep current nationwide teacher vacancy lists and will try to match your qualifications with those vacancies either for little or no cost. ASCD has created a website called JobRamp, which allows teachers to post resumes, scan job openings, and receive help in locating a teaching position free of charge. Another such organization is teacherteachers.com, which is offered for free to prospective teachers and allows job seekers to post their resumes online. These documents can then be accessed by thousands of schools seeking teachers. Personal contacts are often very effective in securing a position as well. Don't hesitate to call friends and acquaintances who might be able to help you obtain interviews. They probably cannot get you a job, but they may be aware of vacancies and know whom you should contact. Contacting specific school districts directly is another way to determine which positions are available. Call, write, or visit the personnel offices of the school districts in which you are interested in obtaining current information directly from the school district. Alternatively, you can use the internet to check the home pages of the school districts and interests that interest you to see which jobs openings are listed. Many education students develop valuable experience, earn some money, and get a foot in the door at school districts by serving as substitute teachers. Some universities even offer coursework in becoming an effective substitute. Besides giving you the opportunity to refine your teaching skills, substitute teachers can provide a competitive advantage in the job market. Some school districts are apt to hire full-time teachers from their substitute ranks if the substitutes have done a good job. After all, school officials would rather hire a known teacher in whom they have confidence than take a chance on a new teacher they don't know. If you're interested in being a substitute teacher, visit the district personnel office to find out the requirements and attend substitute teacher training sessions if they are offered. You can also gain experience working with children by tutoring or doing volunteer work with children at Boys and Girls Clubs, after-school programs, and various sports leagues. Getting to know children, how they behave, and how to interact with them will serve you well when you begin your teaching. The video case, The First Year of Teaching, One Colleague's Story, depicts a 4th grade teacher who speaks candidly about his first year of teaching. All 50 states and the District of Columbia require public elementary and secondary school teachers to be licensed to teach by the Department of Education in the state in which they work. The terms licensure and certification are often confused or misused. License is the official recognition by a state governmental agency that an individual meets state's requirements, whereas certification is the process by which the profession grants special recognition to an individual who has met certain qualifications specified by the profession. Often the term certification, as in I'm going to get my certification to teach, is used when license is not meant. is meant. This usage is a carryover from earlier times. Today, some states continue to use certification as a synonym for license, but in this book, we have tried to distinguish between the two. Traditionally, to qualify for a license, a teacher has to complete an approved teacher education program besides conferring a bachelor's or master's degree, which provides the necessary liberal arts background. Teacher education programs fulfill the state requirement that prospective teachers take certain education courses or demonstrate certain competencies. Since the mid-1980s, the overwhelming majority of states have increased the requirements for licensors, adding test requirements such as the praxis examinations, or in some cases state-developed competency tests of basic skills. Because the No Child Left Behind law requires that highly qualified teachers meet standards in the content areas they teach, prospective teachers are examined on their content area knowledge as well as pedagogical knowledge. The difficulty levels and the required scores to pass these tests vary from state to state. However, in some states, further requirements for licensures include U.S. citizenship, criminal background checks, an oath of allegiance, and in several states, a health certificate. Because the requirements for a license differ from state to state, you should become aware of the requirements for the state in which you will seek employment. Someone in your placement office or your school of education most likely will be able to acquaint you with the license requirements. Your education library probably contains books that list the license requirements of all the states. Alternatively, you can call or write directly to the teacher license office in the states in which you are interested. A directory of state teacher license offices in the United States appears in an appendix at the end of this book. A number of states have reciprocal agreements to accept one another's license as valid. If you move from one state to another, you may want to check whether your teaching license is accepted by the state to which you are moving. Besides the basic license for teaching at elementary and secondary levels, many states require different license or endorsements for such specialization areas as special education, bilingual education, or kindergarten. As you gain experience, you want to move out of teaching into a supervisory, administrative, or counseling position, you will need a special license to make that transition as well. A recent type of license pertains to teaching online courses at virtual schools. Several states now offer online courses for prospective teachers who wish to teach online courses, especially for high school. For example, the University of North Carolina offers the Carolina Online Teaching Program to provide training and license for online teachers. As more and more online teaching occurs, we're more likely to see this type of specialized license. You would be advised to become licensed or endorsed in more than one teaching area if possible. Adding a second field of license will make you more attractive to prospective employers, particularly in smaller school districts which have less flexibility to hire specialists who teach in only one area. If you plan to become an elementary school teacher, having an additional license or endorsement in reading, special education, early childhood education, or bilingual education would be very worthwhile. Another way to increase your appeal to prospective employers is to major or minor in mathematics, one of the sciences, or instructional technology. Elementary school teachers with expertise in these areas are in short supply. If you plan to teach at the secondary level, you can broaden your appeal by becoming licensed to teach in 2 or more subject fields. For example, if you are a Spanish major, minor in French. If you are a chemistry major, minor in physics or mathematics, or doubling up on teaching fields will work to your advantage. In summary, individual states use license requirements to assure the public that the teachers who are educating the youth of our society have been adequately prepared. License requirements should present you with little difficulty as long as the teacher education institution you attend meets the general regulations of the state and education, as long as you maintain your contact with the college official responsible for coordinating the education program with the state license requirements. In many states, the traditional route to license, graduation from an approved teacher education program, is no longer the sole route to gaining a teaching license. Alternate license programs have been developed as a response to teacher shortages and the perception on the part of some lawmakers that courses in education contribute little to a teacher's effectiveness. Generally, these licenses through alternative means hold a bachelor degree in the subject area they will teach, but have taken fewer credit hours in professional education courses than are normally required for teaching license. Often these candidates are required to have at least a B college grade level and to have passed a basic skills test and a test in a subject or a specialty area. One alternative program that has attracted considerable attention is to Teach for America. This program recruits motivated undergraduate students with arts and science majors from elected colleges and universities to teach for 2 years in rural or suburban areas that have had difficulty recruiting teachers. Although the program has been successful in attracting a significant number of minority teachers, its dropout rate is high. Also, the number of teachers produced through the Teach for America program is very small compared to the number graduated through approved teacher education programs. How successful are these alternative license programs? All 50 states have some form of alternative license option, with approximately 16% of licensed teachers having gone through one of these alternative license routes, and 59,000 individuals having been issued teaching license through an alternate route in the 2008-2009 school year. Approximately 40% of all new teachers hired in the United States now follow alternative routes to teacher license. Few formal evaluation studies of alternate teaching programs have been carried out, however, and those that have taken place have sometimes been conducted by people with vested interest in the outcome. Today, a synthesis of what research has been done concludes teachers who are certified through alternative routes lack adequate pedagogical skills, which are typically taught and acquired in formal teacher education programs. One analysis of a national sample of teachers who entered teaching through alternative license routes concluded that they tended to have lower academic qualifications than those who entered through other routes, were less likely to stay in teaching, and were more likely to be teaching in inner city schools that serve more economically disadvantaged students. On the positive side, compared with graduates of traditional teacher education programs, those entering teaching through alternative license programs tend to be older, have more work experience and occupation than other education, are more likely to be males, and are more likely to be people of color. Supporters of alternate license programs argue that the ability to attract men and minorities into teaching speaks to the need for these types of programs. The federal government provides millions of dollars to help mid-career professionals and retiring military personnel become licensed as teachers. Nevertheless, tension exists between those who want to break college-based teacher education monopoly and professional educators who believe that completion of an approved teacher education program is the public's best guarantee that a teacher is safe to practice. The variety of alternate license programs operating across the various states is testimony to the differing views on how teachers should be prepared. The real issue is not whether traditional programs are better than alternate license programs, but rather what the most important elements constituting effective teacher preparation are, and whether the preparation occurs through a traditional or alternate program. One thing seems certain: alternate license programs will continue to expand to meet the projected needs for teachers. For many different reasons, a substantial number of teachers each year find themselves looking for jobs outside education. Has your preparation equipped you with skills that are demanded in fields outside education? Many non-educational employers are eager to employ teachers and people who have gone through teacher preparation programs because they have skills that many college graduates lack. Which generic and transferable skills, that is, skills that are needed in most business and professions, are you likely to have developed in your preparation as a teacher? Among the skills and abilities that teachers require are the following: planning and decision making, working under pressure, conducting performance evaluations, keeping record and organizing materials, using technology, establishing and maintaining good interpersonal relations, communicating effectively in oral and written form, managing groups of people. In short, many of the skills required of teachers are required for other types of work as well. Naturally, additional training may be necessary depending on the exact type of work. Now let's examine some alternative careers. In addition to teaching, school and school districts offer a number of other educational occupations, including librarian, counselor, supervisor, administrator, and school psychologist. Although these roles don't involve full-time teaching of children, they may require some minimum teaching experience and additional license. All of these roles are important in the educational enterprise if you decide that you are interested in education but not necessarily in long-term elementary or secondary school teaching. One of these other occupations may be right for you. You might also investigate employment in early childhood education and daycare centers. Because early childhood education is a growing field, numerous new occupations are developing within it, such as reading specialists to help diagnose learning abilities and curriculum specialists to help plan the studies. State, local, and federal government agencies need researchers, planners, evaluators, and other administrators and others to administer the growing number of early childhood projects they fund. Another area that requires teaching skills is in the field of adult education, which attempts to provide basic education and literacy skills for the many adults who lack such competencies and therefore have difficulty finding work in a technological-oriented society. Adult education occurs in many venues, including public schools, community colleges, and public service organizations. Large businesses also conduct extensive training programs for their employers, and they require the service of people who can design and implement such programs. Many people who have been trained as teachers find their way into such jobs. Several hundreds of thousands of people are employed in training and development in the United States. The field of recreation and leisure activities attracts many people trained as teachers. Workers in this field plan, organize, and direct individual and group activities that help people enjoy their leisure hours. They work with people of various ages and socioeconomic groups, the sick and the well, and those with emotional and physical disabilities. Employment settings range from wilderness to rural to suburban and urban. Examples of recreation program jobs include playground leaders, program specialists in dance, drama, karate, tennis, the arts, and other physical activities, recreation center directors, therapeutic recreation specialists, camp counselors, and wilderness leaders, senior citizen program leaders, civilian special services directors in the armed forces, and industrial recreation directors. Recreation workers held about 339,000 jobs in 2010, and that figure is expected to climb to 400,000 by 2020. The majority worked in local public tax-supported agencies such as municipal and county park and recreation departments. The publishing industry affords numerous job opportunities for education-oriented writers, technology experts, editors, and salespeople. If you have good writing and analytic skills, you might be interested in helping develop or edit textbooks for use in elementary and secondary schools and in colleges. If you enjoy meeting people and traveling, being a textbook sales representative might appeal to you. Another growing area is the development of computer software related to education. Individuals who combine computer skills, including web design, with an understanding of classroom instruction will have a distinct advantage in this job market. Preparation as a teacher is also important for work related to professional organizations such as the National Education Association, American Federation of Teachers, Phi Delta Kappa, Kappa Delta Pi, National Council of Teachers of Mathematics, and National Council of the Social Studies. These organizations and others like them hire people for field work, writing, research, and other staff positions. End of chapter 13.